Elijah Holiday and the Punk Rock Horror Podcast. They're doing the podcast, Punk Rock Horror Podcast, Punk Rock Horror Podcast. Welcome back, listeners, to the Punk Rock Horror Podcast. I'm Matt, and if you would pay attention to the loud slurping next to me, this is
Cody.
We decided to introduce the show with a very terrible parody of Holiday in Cambodia by the Dead Kennedys, and Cody decided to sip over it to try to make you guys not listen to it because he's mean.
Yep. And this coffee's pretty good.
And this coffee is pretty good.
I mean, Irish cream, so...
It is Irish cream.
Can't complain.
I do like Irish cream.
Yeah. And French roast. It's French roast coffee.
We went to that one wedding, and I kind of crashed the wedding because I was annoyed that I wasn't invited. And
yeah, we know.
It was fun.
We know.
You're glad I went. I know you're both glad I went. Uh-huh. You and Harrison are both glad. The couple probably aren't, but I went for you guys.
No, you didn't. You went for the sole reason that is because you were insulted. You were.
I'm not saying. I already admit that. I admit that. I went there for selfish reasons, but I also went for you guys.
Me and Harrison were totally fine, just me and him, and you're like, well, I'm coming with too.
To be fair, they made it so you can bring a date. Okay, Harrison wasn't going to bring anyone, and you were originally going to bring our friend Michael, but he couldn't go. So I was like, Harrison, what the fuck?
I know.
So to be fair.
Everyone's always walking out on me.
I won't walk out on you, Cody.
Thank you, Matt.
But holy shit has been crazy for this podcast.
Yeah, seriously. The past couple weeks, past month. Because we got our website is getting all redone and it's almost done.
It's done. Nana has given us the official okay to go.
Dope. With
it. So yeah, listeners, the website's done. There's still going to be little changes done to it. But you can go visit, check it out.
Yeah.
Anna's the newest member to the Punk Rock Horror Podcast team. She's going to be in charge of taking care of the website and helping us with our social media presence, stuff like that. She is awesome. And if you follow us on our Twitter, you'll actually see her tweet on some of our listener participation stuff.
Yep, my cousin.
So she's dope. Thank you, Anna, for being on the team.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anna.
We've had
that. We've had all these great interviews.
Yeah, we've had Dan and Patricia. We've had Drew and another Dan. Oh my God, we've had Jesse and Aaron came back on to promote the Blue Room. We've had bands come on. We had the guys from Chiaroscuro come on. We have the guys from Mixed Kid Fridays about to come out. We had Joseph Costa from Taking Alpha come on, and we got another band interview coming up. It's crazy, and it's so surreal because when we started and it's, to be fair, it hasn't even been a full year for us, but I think that's what makes it so surreal. Cause it's
all this happened at once, basically, too.
I know, right? In January, we're just we'll probably pick up more traction in next year, and then boom, near the end of this year, it's attention.
Not even near the end of the year. It's just past mid-year.
Oh yeah, it's end of the summer, basically, right?
Yeah, we still got fall and winter.
Yeah, and oh my God, it's so humbling, and it's so nice, and half the reason for it is you listeners, you guys out there talking about us and telling your families and friends about us, and getting us out there and saying check out this podcast. You guys are awesome.
Smell that. Is that necessary right now?
I took off my socks and shoes, and Cody's interrupted.
Really?
I was saying something nice to the listeners.
I know. I'm just. Do
you want me to put my socks?
I
can put my socks
in the
back
middle
on.
Of it.
I can put my socks back on.
I really don't care. I just wanted to make a comment.
You know what? Now I'm just gonna cut them off. It's cool.
All right, great.
Yeah,
just. But yeah, no. Another thing that we actually want to touch on the fact that all this great things are happening is that we're actually two of my friends. Marsha, who was actually name dropped here a while ago, she was one of our first listener participators.
Yeah, on episode 3.
Yeah, on episode 3. Her and her husband actually just bought a costume shop up in Fort Collins. And we're going to be working with them in October.
Oh, wait, let's do a drum roll. Okay?
And we're doing a collab with them, actually, in October. It's going to be really fun.
That's right, listeners. Stay tuned, because we're actually going to do
live stream.
Yep, it's a little ambitious, because we're still a little unknown, but We're going to do an actual live stream. We're going to make it so you guys can come out and check out this awesome costume shop and hang out with us as we record 2 live episodes of the podcast. I think 2, or is it 1? Did we ever figure that out?
I think we're doing 2.
We're at least doing 1.
Yeah,
we're at least doing 1.
And like the cool thing is that it's gonna relate to what we're gonna be doing in October, because in October, I think we've said it on the podcast.
Yeah, we talked about the werewolves and vampires.
Yeah, because like in October we're gonna be doing a where each episode in October is actually gonna be corresponding to a monster. So instead of doing our normal thing where we talk about the history of a subject in horror or something in horror, and then we talk about 2 movies on our Friday episodes. We're gonna do a whole entire episode dedicated to one monster. So we're gonna be talking about 4 horror monsters in October.
And what's really cool about this, guys, is for this live event, if you come out and you not only support the podcast and check out the shop, we're gonna as we always bring guests on that part of the horror community and our horror fans themselves. We thought this would be a chance to bring some of you listeners on. So we're not going to hold any contest or anything like that. Pure and simple. If you guys want to come check us out and watch a live recording and be involved with it, we will soon give everyone the details of where to go, when to be there, and there is no purchase necessary. There's going to be no tickets. It's literally just come on in, sit down, and hang out with your 2 favorite goofballs from the Punk Rock Horror Podcast.
Yeah. And we're still working out some of the things for it, because
there's going to be giveaways.
Yeah, we're going to talk about giveaways. There's going to be discounts,
costumes,
all kinds of stuff. We're thinking about we're probably going to be doing like a costume workshop with them.
Yeah,
something along those lines.
It's going to be dope, and we're even going to have a model dress up as like a vampire to hang out that you guys can take pictures with. I'm the model. Yep. I'm going to wear fishnets and
so pretty.
I'm going to be so pretty.
You got a pretty mouth there.
No, we are going to have it's going to be big, guys. It's going to be amazing ghouls and gals, and just it's going to be an all-day kind of thing, I think. But as we're talking about, as we're saying, as the gets closer to that time, we'll update every one of you and let you guys know on our Facebook and Twitter what's going on. So if you want to get the details for this event, please like us and follow us on Facebook, and also stay connected on our Twitter and our Instagram. Yeah. And we will let you guys know as soon as we jump on that. But again, thank you, listeners, and all of our recent followers on Twitter and Facebook and
Instagram
and everywhere. You guys seriously are amazing, and I know I've kind of touched on it before. I know it sounds like a little impersonal when it's just like, thanks everyone, and when you're not thanking someone directly, But no, seriously, you people are amazing, and
what do you mean, you people?
I
had to say it.
The ones that like to hang out in the dark and watch movies with gore and guts and spooky ghosts
and stare at you.
Yeah. The ones that are usually advert to the color pink. I know I am, at least. Yeah. Every time I kind of walk past the store and I see something pink, I just.
Oh no, I can't say that. I like having a pink towel.
You know what? To be fair, it's taken me a lot just to wear a lighter blue.
I mean, you drive a yellow car.
I know. It's kind of ironic, because I'm like, it's kind of punk rock. It's in an ironic way, because I used to hate yellow on cars, and I was like, go figure. Yeah. I have my own yellow car now. I know. And so
I mean, I never wanted a mom car, and now that's what I drive.
Your mom car is pretty spacious, though.
I know. It has a DVD player in it and everything. It's pretty great.
And you know what? If you become a Patreon subscriber, you will have the chance to hang out in Cody's mom's van, and we can watch horror movies together on the DVD player.
No. No. Stay out of my car.
Disclaimer, there is no chance we actually have a reward to hang out with Cody in his actual mom's van.
No. Not unless we already know each other. Just
saying.
I'm just going to have some random person hey, I subscribe to your Patreon. Let's go hang out in your car and watch horror movies. Like, who are you? I'm Tim from Texas. What? No.
To be fair, we are saying we want to take a trip to Texas, so now we're just gonna have a random. I'm waiting for the random listener named Tim who is from Texas and be like, so it's like, so are you just gonna tease this entire time, or are we gonna actually do this?
No. What do you want from me?
So today's episode, I don't know, do we just want to jump into the episode or do you share our thoughts?
So let's share our thoughts.
Okay, so we're doing slightly something different. We're doing a thing called like shower thoughts with Matt and Cody, and these are literally thoughts we have in the shower or in certain other circumstances where we're thinking to ourselves too much. And so I'm gonna set this off with my own shower thought that I had recently that I hit Cody up with. So, and it's about religion. So disclaimer, I'm not gonna like try to like talk down any religion. So just bear with me. So, all right, Cody. So, when do you think was the very first smartass who ever like learned sarcasm? Like, who do you think is the very first guy who was a sarcastic person?
I'm gonna say Julius Caesar. That's why he got stabbed to shit.
Okay, let's say Julius Caesar. But let's say it goes back even further than that. Let's say it goes back to
before the Crusades.
Before the Crusades. Say like when they were writing the scriptures for the Bible, right?
Yeah.
Okay, say, you know, someone saw the pillars that would make up a good person in the Christian religion in the Christian religion, right? In the Bible, and there's like, what if we switch this around, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so now let's take away the sarcasm part and say this is actually a person who wanted to like make an actual test, who actually talked to God, but realized that not everyone could be part of this religion. Follow along with me. So, what are the pillars that make up Christianity? Okay, so it's go ahead. No,
I was just like, I don't know.
All right, so what are the pillars that make up Christianity and Satanism? Okay, so pillars that make up Christianity are that you have to be a good person, you know, you have to treat your neighbor the way you want to be treated, stuff like that. And Satanism is usually put under a light of something more darker and sinister. Come to find out, in Satanism, from what I understand, and keep in mind, everyone, I don't study religion that often, and there might be some things that I say that are incorrect, so be aware of that. Say, you know, the pillars in Satanism have come out to be, it's like, just be a good person, don't be a dick, you can do whatever you want, you have free will, just don't be an asshole, basically.
Yeah, there's that. Well, no, sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
Okay. And then we have the pillars of Christianity. It's like you can kind of do whatever you want, and you can kind of do it with certain people, but you can't do this, and you got to be here every Sunday, basically, right? That seems a little strict for like a religion that's like super like accepting and like friendly, right?
Yeah.
That seems kind of more along the lines of Satanism, right? It's say way back then, someone flipped around the scriptures, right? And the pillars that make up Satanism are actually the pillars that make up Christianity, and the pillars that make up Christianity are actually the pillars to make up Satanism, and it's actually a test. And the way we know this is because Lucifer is the Lord of Lies.
Yeah.
And then if we want to delve even further, say like there's only one true religion, right?
Yeah.
And say, so what's the oldest modern living religion?
Christianity. No, Judaism.
Exactly. Judaism is the master blueprint. It's the master key. And every other religion has like hints within its scriptures.
Yeah.
And like its own books that lead to like what the actual religion is. But the only way you can do it is be accepting, be understanding, and be tolerant of other religions. And be willing to learn from other religions. And
Christianity nowadays are like, fuck you!
Exactly. So they could only have certain people follow a certain religion, right?
Yeah.
Like, say, what if that's the actual true thing, and that explains why Oprah is so powerful?
Oprah?
Oprah.
Right.
I'm going with Oprah.
Okay. To an extent. It kind of makes sense to me, mostly because, like, I live up the block from Planned Parenthood, and I see all those super religious people that stand out in front of there, and it's like, fuck you, man. Like, I don't think God would be like, all right, you should shame them to death. Like, in my opinion, especially like when there's always that meme that goes around on Facebook a lot where it says like the treatment of women in each religion, you know, like in Christianity, it's okay to kill a woman even though she's raped. Yeah. Because she cheated on her husband, and it's like.
And to be fair, like we know.
No, yeah, we're not like I don't study religion either. I don't know all the deep things or like actual like context of a lot of them and stuff like that. But it's just like from what you see most of the time, it's like all this like violent stuff. Right. But then you see that, and then you see in the Satanic Bible, it's like Just treat women like a person, man. They're
Right.
people.
Yeah. I don't know, listeners, what do you think? Do you think it's crazy, it's dumb, or do you think there's a point to it?
Or do you think we're just full of shit?
Yeah, send us your thoughts in your emails to punkrockhorrorpodcast@gmail.com, and maybe we will go ahead and read them our next Monday episode.
Maybe. All I know, you know what's funny is that's your shower thought. Mine is just like, what witchcraftery does makes a non-fire oven that the Amish use produce heat?
We're gonna have to talk about it the next time.
I'm just saying, like,
No,
that's what I
know.
think about. I'm like, how is there heat coming out of that? Or who the hell found a hamster? Where are hamsters wild? Have you ever seen a wild hamster? No. Where the hell do you get them? That's what I think about in the shower. I'm just standing there like scrub myself.
Oh man,
where does the shower?
You know, this perfectly describes like the speed of this podcast. We'll talk about something super serious and deep, and then be like, "Where the fuck do hamsters really come from?"
Yeah, like, that's what I want to know. Like, I know there's like guinea pigs, so you think they come from New Guinea or something like that. But it's like, have you ever actually seen a wild one? No. Where the fuck do they come from?
I want my BBC narrator to narrate the extreme lives of guinea pigs and
No, I want
and hamsters.
Snoop Dogg to do it.
Hibbity bibbity ow. Look at the hamster crawling down. Howdy wow.
That's all I think about the show. I was like, where the fuck? Or if a giraffe were to wear a necktie, would it be at the top of his neck or at the bottom?
Oh my god, you're speaking too many stuff. All right, let's jump into it. We have so many shared thoughts to share.
Yeah.
All right. So listeners, as you know, we are talking about Stephen King today. We're talking about the history of Stephen King, the life of Stephen King, the man, the myth, the legend, the king.
What do you mean the myth? He's still alive.
Is he?
Yes.
Is he really?
Yes, he is.
Have you? I'm just saying. Have you hung out with him recently?
No, but
then how do you know?
He literally just put out a new book and did interviews about it.
Maybe that was actually the real Richard Bachman.
I hate my life. Podcast over.
All right, so we're gonna jump into our listener participation corner. As always, Cody will do the Facebook, and I will do the Twitters.
You do the Twitter first, because I gotta pull up the Facebook, because we have at several points in the Facebook, not just off of our.
It's like you guys like horror and Stephen King or something. So, listener participation corner. We posted and tweeted out that we will be talking about some of our favorite Stephen King creations and delve into the history of this iconic horror icon. And we asked all you ghouls and gals, what are some of your favorite Stephen King creations and why? And on Twitter, from Art of the Crow, he replied with, I would have to say The Shining, and it's just one of my favorites. I think I like it more now because of its connection to Colorado. And then from the Observing Sentinel, my favorite is It. And then from Allison from the 401, she commented, The Stand. What a tremendous story. Good versus evil classic, and I really rooted for the Free Zone community and Mother Abigail. The book was just so well written. And you know what? I kind of like when, although I love hearing when people like really bring out their horror ones and be like, oh, I love It, and oh man, I love, the Shining. Like, I love hearing about those. I really do. But I also like it when we get kind of like Stephen King's more unknown kind of stuff. So like when someone's just like, or not unknown, but related to horror, I should say.
It's more like life-telling ones instead of just horror.
Right. So The Stand, like, that, I'm glad, like, kudos to Allison, and kudos to all of you on our Twitter who took the time to comment and let us know what you guys like. And now we will move over to the Facebook.
The Facebook. Forrest, he said, The Shining is my favorite Stephen King book and favorite Stanley Kubrick movie. Would love to hear a breakdown of the differences between the two. We might do that at some point.
Ooh. Maybe a new episode idea.
Yeah, books versus the movies.
Forest. When you go into the forest, you'll find myths and miracles beyond your wildest imagination.
You'll find a shining thing.
We just lost Forrest and all people named Forrest as listeners.
I know.
Sorry.
We just lost all our
We
listeners.
get carried away.
Tracy, she said, my favorite movie would be Stand By Me from the short story The Body. She feels like She likes the feeling of nostalgia from the movie, and the acting is amazing, in her opinion. Favorite book would be either The Talisman, Rose Matter, or Misery. She can't choose.
Oh, wow.
See, that's another thing. Like,
Misery's a good one.
Misery's really good.
What's really funny about Misery is that I always forget the Stephen King one. I don't know why.
I always forget it was a book.
Well, because like it has the very Stephen King themes within it, and you can definitely tell it's a Stephen King creation. But I don't know why I always forget Stephen King did it.
Moving on. Yeah, I know. That's one of the... just kind of going off of that little sidebar. Did you know Hush? It's not a Stephen King book or anything, but a lot of people... because I had trouble looking up a Stephen King movie on Netflix for my movie, because I was trying to find something a little unknown, and I thought Hush was one. Because it came up under the Stephen King, when you can search.
You're talking about the movie where
the deaf girl.
Yeah, the deaf woman.
Yeah, so it's not. It's but there's a lot of nods to Stephen King stories. You can see a lot of Stephen King books and stuff in the background and stuff like that. So that's why. Fun thought. And then Matthew, he said, for me, his scariest novels deal not necessarily with the supernatural, but with the horror of people like in Misery or The Green Mile. That being said, my favorite of his books is probably the fourth book in his Dark Tower series, Wizard and Glass, which is basically just a Western. Best movie is Cujo, even if they did change the ending from the book. A Rabid St. Bernard is terrifying. See, I read the book... And it was so hard for me to get into it when I first read it. It took me 4 or 5 tries before I could actually finally read it. And I admit the book ending, I think, is a little better. And then James, while not a book, but a short story, 1408, because it really fucks with your mind. That's your movie. And then my mom, Belinda, I liked Autopsy Room 4. Stephen King wrote the story Autopsy Room 4 so well she could feel the cold table and hear the man screaming inside. I remember reading that short story, and that was woof. Stephen King has such a good way of writing his stories in his books that you actually feel like you're there.
I completely agree. Thank you to all of our listeners from our listener participation corner. This is the only time you can participate, and you get a reward for it, and it's a reward that you can be proud of for participating in.
Yep, and it's a self-high five from me.
High fives all around. Thank you, guys, and stay tuned for another listener participation corner that we will come out with sometime soonish. We'll let you know. We'll
at some point. You'll see.
We'll get there one of these days.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Who are we?
I don't know.
Oh my god! Before we get into it, I didn't tell you that. So I remember on our latest recording, when we did our movie reviews, where we had it froze on us.
Yeah.
And I told you, I was like, we need to keep that in. I actually forgot to take that out and totally kept it in.
Of us freaking out, going, oh god, oh my god, what's going on? What's going on?
I totally forgot to take it out, so it's now in there permanently, and I think it should stay there because
it has to stay there now.
Yeah, it's just, I could fix it and replace the audio, but what would be the fun in that? It's artistic, it's vulnerable.
All right, getting into it. So we're so this is a little bit different from what we normally do, because normally we talk about genres in horror and subgenres and all that. So as you can tell, we're talking about Stephen King, and one of the big differences that we're doing for this is that we're actually going about the history of Stephen King, and more about him, not just the inspirations for his books or history about his books and movies.
Yeah, and we'll touch on his books too, and we'll touch how it's inspired us and what it's done for us too.
Oh, before we jump into this, what's your favorite Stephen King?
Mine, I think everyone can already guess it, and it's going to be no surprise, but mine is It. Not although I do love the most recent adaptation of it, mine would be the very, very first one, not the movie adaptation that was on TV. Because, I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but that was, one of my early introductions into, horror. Mm-hmm. And, I never got scared of watching that movie. Mm-hmm. I got creeped out by it, but I was just enthralled by it because it was just, for, a 7-8-year-old boy. Yeah. In, the early 90s. Or no, I would have had to be, 5 or 6. Never mind. Anyways, into, the early mid-90s, that movie is just, it's so weird because I wanted to know more about Pennywise, and I want to know more about this like universe and like why he has his powers and who he is, and then like, because at first I thought like he was just an alien spider.
Yeah.
And then like when I actually delved in more into the lore, I was like, holy shit, like no one really knows what he looks like. He's just like a super intense kind of like being that wants to fuck shit up. And then I was like, and there's a turtle? And then I looked at my turtle Snappy and I'm like, you're a hero. Don't let anyone tell you different. But no, I love that movie, and it was also like my first introduction to like Tim Curry outside of like Aladdin, because I think he did the voice of Jafar, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like that was my first introduction to Tim Curry, and
I know. No, he didn't. Did he do Jafar?
I feel like he did.
I don't remember.
Either way, like and that got me interested in Tim Curry and the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it's just and the reason I say that is because it's like it's what we've been saying this entire time with horror, is that horror connects you in ways that you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
And that did that for me, and then also it also became like a huge love thing for me to watch The Shining whenever it's raining.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Cody?
For me, so books, I would have to say Autopsy Room. Just because that was one of the first like Stephen King books that I ever read. But like, so I remember I actually got introduced to Pennywise outside of the It show. Like my first like memory of Pennywise was me, my cousin Jenny, my dad, and a couple other my cousins and my friend and one of my childhood friends. We were actually at the Parade of Lights, and we're standing right above one of the like sewer drains. And every time me and my friend would like drop a toy and we'd go pick it up, like my cousin Jenny would be like, "Watch out, Pennywise will get you." I'm like, and I look at her like, "Who the hell is that?" and
just like, "Here, grab the turtle, I swear."
And so
it'll be okay. It's like bulletproof vest for him.
So that was kind of like my introduction, but like, so when I saw It for the first time, like, I actually saw the second half.
Oh, so when they're adults,
and I remember not really caring about it, and then I saw the first half and I liked it more, but like I just remember never caring for the second half. So.
I will admit the first half is a lot more strong, although there are a lot of iconic scenes in the second half, i.e. like the time they're in that Chinese restaurant with the eyeball.
Yeah, but like I say, for me, like my favorite Stephen King interpretations was always the made-for-TV movies, like Storm of the Century. Was actually the first like full Stephen King series that I watched like way back when, and that's my first memory. I used to watch it with my mom all the time when it was on TV.
Yeah.
And then the Langoliers. Such a horrible adaptation. The CG is not good, but I just remember having so many fond memories of just watching that. You know, especially when the dude was like, "Yeah, me and my brother used to beat each other up like this," and he put like fucking a toaster in a pillowcase and just beat the crap out of the dude who's going insane with it when they hop back onto the plane. So like,
oh my god, that's right. I remember that movie now. I remember
with they're like the Langoliers are coming, and it's just these giant fuzzballs with like chainsaw teeth. They're so, even for the time, horrible CG. Like it's definitely like a made for sci-fi movie.
So you mean a Pomeranian?
Yeah. But those are kind of my favorite Stephen King ones. And Carrie. I loved Carrie.
Carrie, such a special place in my heart with Carrie. Like, when I got a PSP, that was the first movie like I downloaded to it was Carrie, and I watched it like anytime that like I could. Like, it's such a good movie.
That one's really good. And oh my god, what's the one with the car?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I want to say Maximum Overdrive, but I'm pretty
No,
positive.
not Maximum Overdrive. That's the one where all the electronics start coming to life and some dude dies by getting shot. No, it's the car that's alive.
No, I know what you're talking about. I just, god damn it, I can't remember it now.
Yeah.
Anyways, we should probably
okay, listeners, if you could tell me the name of that, make sure to hashtag dumb motherfuckers on that, because we feel really dumb forgetting about it.
Or duh, if you don't want to type that all out.
Yeah, hashtag duh, and then the name of it. Because I feel really dumb, because that was another like one of my first movies I watched all the way through. Right. That was a Stephen King.
Yeah, and I can't remember it either. Wow.
Yeah.
Are you sure it wasn't Cars?
Yes, I'm sure. But
Disney's Cars.
Okay, so, but yeah, that's ours. So now we'll get into the history of Stephen Edwin King.
So Stephen Edwin King was born on September 21st, 1947, and is an American author of horror, supernatural fiction, suspense, science fiction, and fantasy. His books have sold more than 350 million copies, many of which have been adapted into feature films, miniseries, television series, and comic books. King has published 58 novels, including 7 under the pen name Richard Bachman and 6 non-fiction books. Bachman. He has written around 200 short stories, most of which have been published in book collections. King was born...
You already said that.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why I wrote it down twice.
No. He was born in Portland, Maine. His father, Donald Edwin King, was a merchant seaman. Donald was also... seaman. Donald was born under the surname Pollock, but as an adult used the surname King, and King's mother was Nellie Ruth.
I don't know why I included it, but it says, like, Nay Pillsbury.
Yeah.
It's from Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
I'm fucking up talking lately.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna read.
Thanks.
Okay,
give me a break. I'll come back next paragraph.
As a child, King apparently witnessed one of his friends being struck and killed by a train. Though he has no memory of the event, his family told him that after leaving home to play with the boy, King returned speechless and seemingly in shock. Only later did the family learn of the friend's death. Some commenters have suggested that this event may have psychologically inspired some of King's darker works, but King makes no mention of it in his memoir, On Writing, that was published in 2000.
King related in detail his primary inspiration for writing horror fiction in his non-fiction Danse Macabre in 1981. In a chapter titled An Annoying Autobiographical Pause, King compares his uncle's dowsing for water using the bow of an apple branch with the sudden realization of what he wanted to do for a living. The inspiration occurred while browsing through an attic with his elder brother when King uncovered a paperback version of an H.P. Lovecraft collection of short stories he remembered as The Lurker in the Shadows that had belonged to his father. King told Barnes & Noble Studio during a 2009 interview, "I know that I found home when I read that book." And King attended Durham's elementary school and graduated from Lisbon Falls High School in Lisbon Falls, Maine. He displayed an early interest in horror as an avid reader of EC's horror comic, including Tales from the Crypt, Woot Woot, shout out. Woot. He later paid tribute to the comics in his screenplay for Creepshow. He began writing for fun while still in school, contributing articles to Dave's Rag, the newspaper his brother published with Mimeograph Machine, and later began selling to his friends stories based on movies he had seen. Though, when discovered by his teachers, he was forced to return the profits.
Thug life.
The first of his stories to be independently published was I Was a Teenage Grave Robber.
Grave Robber.
It was
Grave Robber.
It starred Elmer Fudd. I'm hunting those Waskawee graves. It was serialized over 4 issues, 3 published and 1 unpublished, of a fanzine. God damn it.
Fanzine.
Comics Review in 1965. That story was published the following year in a revised form as In a Half World of Terror. In another fanzine, Stories of Suspense, edited by Mary Wolfman, as a teen, King has also won a Scholastic Art and Writing Award. And then, do you want me to finish this off?
From 1996, okay. King studied the University of Maine, graduating in 1970 with a Bachelor of Arts in English. That year, his daughter, Naomi Rachel, was born. He wrote a column, Steve King's Garbage Truck, for the student newspaper. The Maine campus had participated in a writing workshop organized by Burton Hatlin. King held a variety of jobs to pay for his studies, including being a janitor, a gas pump attendant, and a worker at an industrial laundry.
So before we move on, let's talk about all of that. So, I want to touch on the trauma real quick. So, without a doubt, that's extremely sad that happened to him, and I can relate to and understand that type of trauma he went through, and I kind of wonder if his trauma actually has played into it, and I can understand why he wouldn't like full on admit that, because when you go through something that serious, like it kind of, to me, and like I can't speak for King, but like to me, like if I admitted that, then it would feel like I would be giving power to the incident, to the trauma itself, and it would just feel like the trauma still has more control over me. And I don't know if like that's the reason why King has never admitted it. And again, this is all skepticism and theorizing here, but I being a person that has trauma, like I understand, like you got to find an outlet for it, and I wouldn't be surprised if King has used, you know, his amazing writing style and his stories as an outlet for that trauma. I mean, what do you think?
I could definitely see that, especially with like, because when I first like read that part, like it kind of reminded me of Stand By Me.
Yeah.
You know, it's the boys following the train tracks, and his friend died by the train and everything.
Yeah,
and they find the dead body and all that. So like I can see like that's his way of dealing with it in little short bursts.
Right.
Like, you know, like mental, like even though he mentally blocked it and everything, and he says he doesn't have any recollection.
Yeah.
I could see like that's his way of dealing with grief.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, maybe it's changed. To be fair, we did all this research through Wikipedia, so everything we're reading to you guys, this stuff you can find on Wikipedia. So if he has come out and like admitted that, or if, like they fully disprove that, or whatever, we're not aware of it. But
yeah. And just speaking of like his life experiences that have influence on his books and stuff, like one thing that when we were originally like editing the stuff that we were putting in here, I thought it wasn't necessary, but there was one part that I thought was that I meant to have us keep in, was talking about how his father left him at a very young age.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And so like I could kind of see like that trauma being influences in his books, because normally when you think about like in The Shining,
right,
and even a little bit of The Mist, but like even though in The Mist the father figure is kind of the hero in the end, like he kills his family and stuff, but there's always like the father's kind of always the bad guy, in a sense, like to an extent, especially to the younger kids.
So yeah, you could definitely kind of see, because like that, like I can't relate to that, but I can understand why you'd be angry, and you'd have to find an outlet for it. And
I mean, even to an extent in Pet Sematary.
You're gonna have to remind me. It's been a minute.
So in Pet Sematary, the child dies, gets hit by a car, and then the dad takes him to the pet cemetery to bring him back to life.
Yeah.
Same with his dead wife. So like,
yeah, and that's like, and they have the stereotypical like, I'm like, don't take him to the cemetery.
Don't do it. It will bring evil into your life.
I don't like that cemetery.
And then that kid straight up murdered that man.
Yeah, he did.
But yeah, so like, I mean, I think it's with any writer, is that any trauma, like especially, and I think especially with horror writers, trauma like has a lot to do with their stories, because it's their way of like dealing with their trauma and everything. And
going on to what you're saying, like when it comes to art in general, like you have to bring, like, I mean, I guess you don't have to, but you kind of do bring like your own personal life into it, like you do. And whether how much you let it influence it or not, you know, is completely up to the person. But like you do, like when you look at certain paintings and you read the backstory of some artists, you can understand like why they would draw it this way or paint it this way or make these certain creations. Like you'll because you could definitely see a difference between like a painting for a person who like you know, a commission and like an actual personal like piece of art.
Yeah,
like there's far differences in that. And so same thing with writing is like, you know, like King has written stories for like magazines and stuff, and so like he did that for those magazines, and so that could have been more detached from like him personally. But like when he actually writes something that he writes on his own, it's definitely delves into more detail. Like like, and this goes on to the next point I want to make. Like it has a huge amount of lore and detail, to which I've always known, and I'm glad like this pretty much confirms it, that H.P. Lovecraft was influenced in that book. Like,
oh yeah,
and this proves it with his like the fact that he uncovered paperback versions of H.P. Lovecraft collections. Yeah, and like short stories. Like there's no way that you can't say that it's not Lovecraft inspired. I mean,
no,
outer dimension,
no, it's not.
Outer dimensional turtles, turtles.
Yeah. That's the sound of turtle. Oh no, turtles go.
That's when they're humping.
Well, that's the only sound I've ever heard a turtle make. They're like giant tortoises.
Blast doors.
Fuck you, Pennywise.
You know, we need to, going onto our porn career that we've kind of touched on here in the podcast, when we go into a porn career, if we do an actual, like, our own parody of, like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we have to make the male actors go, like, can you just imagine, like, that would be so funny. Like, say it's just, like, a hot chick, and she's just like, it's like, I'm about to fuck you up, bitch. I felt like we need to get a big, huge, like, buff dude, like, just, and just. If you're still tuning into this podcast after all, like, the talk of turtle porn.
I was like, I like how they switched from talking about Stephen King and all the trauma that influenced his books.
You know, we've been. Look, we're also wondering about wild hamsters and guinea pigs. So,
I know. Seriously, where the fuck do they come from?
One day at a time. That's one podcast at a time. All right. In his beginning career, King sold his first professional short story, The Glass Four, to Startling Mystery Stories in 1967. The Fogler Library at the University of Maine now holds many of King's papers.
After leaving the university, King earned a certificate to teach high school, but unable to find a teaching post immediately. Initially supplemented his laboring wage by selling short stories to men's magazines such as Cavalier. Many of these early stories have been republished in the collection Night Shift. The short story The Raft was published in Atom, a men's magazine. After being arrested for driving over a traffic cone, he was fined $250 and had no money to pay for the petty larceny fine. For driving over a traffic cone? Jesus Christ.
Such a rebel.
Luckily, payment arrived for the short story The Raft, and then entitled The Float, and quote unquote, this is what he said, all I did was cast a check and pay the fine. In 1971, King married Tabitha Spruce, a fellow student at the University of Maine whom he had met at the university's Fogler library after one of Professor Hatland's workshops. That fall, King was hired as a teacher at Hamden Academy in Hamden, Maine. He continued to contribute short stories to magazines and worked on ideas for novels. During that time, King developed a drinking problem, which would plague him for more than a decade. Most writers do get a drinking problem.
We'll touch on that in a second.
I know.
No, I know. It's pretty surprising. In 1973, King's first novel, Carrie, was accepted by publishing house Doubleday. King had thrown an earlier draft of the novel into the trash after becoming discouraged with his progress, writing about a teenage girl with psychic powers. His wife retrieved the manuscript and encouraged him to finish it. His advance for Carrie was $2,500. King's paperback rights later earned $400,000.
Whoa.
So, before we move on, let's talk a little bit about that. So, I don't know, do we want to touch on the first paragraph, though, about, like, his drinking and everything like that, or do we want to go touch on...
well, okay, so, like, touching on the whole, like, drinking problem, like, that's kind of new to me, because I didn't know about that, but it's kind of like, when you think about it, like, such successful publishers, writers, and everything, that's normally, like, their thing, is that they have a drinking problem and stuff.
Right.
Which is crazy, because, like, I mean, you can kind of understand because they have all this pressure of, like, needing to hit deadlines for publishing novels, not just little short stories,
right,
like
and
whole novels.
But you also have to, you're living under the pressure that you have to keep making a story that not only revitalizes and continues your previous story, but also doesn't stray too far away from the original creation. Because if, like, we know a couple, like, writers in our life, and there's, like, a lot of stress for them to make sure, like, you know, it's good, it's interesting, it's going to capture interest and
keep interest. Like, that's the thing, is, like, you can have a great beginning and a great ending, but if that middle part's just bleh.
Well, I mean, let's look at, like, not Jared Tolkien, George R.R. Martin, like, with Game of Thrones. Like, I'm guessing more of the reason, like, half the reason why he hasn't even come out with the rest of his books is because he probably doesn't know how to like follow up to like the story he's already written, which like
well, he has the ending. Just kind of going off on a Game of Thrones tangent is that he has the ending. He has the ending written out and made. He just hasn't gotten the filler.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. He's probably like under all this pressure, and like, thank God the show's doing so well, and is like, keeping him funded. If if it wasn't for that, I bet it'd be a lot different for him. But I mean, like, I don't know, and maybe like George R. R. Martin's just a dick and likes teasing everyone. Who knows?
Yeah, kind of like Rick and Morty.
Yeah, but that makes more sense when you really read into it.
It really does.
And then like I can just imagine like the stress Stephen King has been under, like, and the kind of stress he gets under, like, because he's unfortunately like he comes out with a lot of great works, but then there's those that he just get very heavily criticized by academic writers.
The Fog.
The Mist.
Actually, the Mist movie is great. I think it's very
I love
underrated.
the movie, but it's really... I'm so divided by the ending. Like, I get the ending. I really do. I get the ending. It just... We'll talk about it another day.
I just say, I like the ending because I end up like I've said before on the podcast and everything, I end up liking a horror movie when the ending isn't a happy one.
Right. I think my whole problem with the ending, and this is just the movie adaptation, to be fair, I haven't read the book. My whole problem with the movie adaptation movie is that, spoiler warning if you don't want the ending of Mist ruined for you.
It's been out long enough.
My whole thing that bugs me is that when he shoots his whole family, he gets out and then the military shows up. I was like, are you kidding me? If he waited like 5 more minutes, they would have been fine.
Yeah, but
I get it. Like, they had no idea of knowing that. They had no way to tell. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just like, but there's a tank coming by. Wouldn't you hear a tank coming? I mean, to be fair, I'm not around tanks that often. So. Okay,
well, also, they're dealing with all the trauma inside. There's a lot of crying, and then all of a sudden, he's just going to hear...
Right. Yeah, I don't know, man. It just...
From the shots.
Like it's a brilliant ending. But it's also a very frustrating ending, and I think that's what makes it so brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, no, see, that's my thing with Cujo. Right. So I really enjoyed the movie. And like I said, before it took a while for me to really get into the book and stuff like that. But, like, once I did, I finally, like, finished it. The book ending is so much better because it's not a happy ending. Like, and right. I think that's what it needed. Like, that's what I think takes away from the movies. Okay, so, again... Spoiler, but both of these have been out for so long. Like, if you don't know the ending of it, well, and you're a Stephen King fan, shame on you.
How dare you for not fully supporting him? Shame.
But so the ending, how the ending changes is that in the book, the child dies because him and his mom are locked in this hot car.
Right.
And it takes place in the South in the middle of the summer. And they're stuck in this car for I believe like at least an hour. So they're baking in this, and it's back in the time when cars were made from metal.
Yeah, so it's like super hot.
Yeah, so it made sense because the kid, he's a small child. I think he was a baby. No, he was a small child. Sorry, it's been a hot minute since I've read the book.
Fun.
Get it? Oh, we hate ourselves. But like, and the kid dies from heat exhaustion, because like it's so hot in the car and everything. And not only that, like the kid's probably having a heart attack from this Saint Bernard that's gone rabid, just like attacking the fucking car the entire time. They change it in the movie where the kid dies, quote unquote, but then like they resuscitate him.
Yeah.
And so I feel like just throwing that happy ending, because that's the one thing that upsets me about like movies is like, well, the ending was too grim for test audiences. Like, fuck those test audiences. Like, if that's what should have been, it should have been.
Well, and touching on going back to like art and vulnerability of art, like that's what Stephen King did with his stories, is that he brought realistic endings to crazy ass
supernatural things.
Yeah, to supernatural things. He brought realistic endings. Like, if they're stuck in a hot car made out of metal, more likely they're going to die from heat exhaustion.
Yeah.
Like, if they can't get out. And like that's kind of something that's very sorely like skipped over in a lot of movies these days. Is like we have to have an happy ending. It doesn't make sense if it like negates any part of the story or anything like that. We have to have an happy ending. And Stephen King did this great job of being like, there doesn't always have to be a happy ending, and
Yeah.
if you always promote a happy ending to everyone, you're gonna start giving people expectations and stories that are hard to live up to and can like really taint and ruin the potential of a story. And I think that's what I love about Stephen King, is that he's honest about his writing. Like, he doesn't, for himself, he doesn't do it primarily to sell and make money. He does it because this is something that I want to write about. This is something I want to do, and I'm going to write it, and I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
And people are going to love it, and people do love it. I mean,
like his inspirations for The Shining, he had to go to the Stanley Hotel
or even
to write it.
Or even if we talk about The Green Mile, like, it's very depressing, fucked up book, but it's also a really good book. And
really good.
Even the movie's really good. And I'm not gonna lie, I cried watching that movie. Like, when Michael Clark Duncan's character got executed, that, like, his line delivery and everything. Like,
sorry, I don't mean to giggle. It's okay. That's
monster.
a time. I know. Okay, so the ending of that movie got ruined for me because like I was watching it with my dad and one of my other childhood friends and his family, and we were up in Wyoming when we were watching it. And it was that ending scene. You're supposed to be all heartbroken because Michael Clark Duncan's getting killed for a crime that he didn't commit and everything. And he's like, "Don't put me in the dark, boss. I hate it to be put in the dark." And so, like, I can't remember if it was my dad or my buddy's dad going like, "What the fuck? You're not going to put that on, so you're just going to see his eyes bulge out of his face and everything, make everyone watch him as he gets electrocuted and fried, just bleh." So, like, that's all I could think of. Was like, yeah, that'd be kind of messed up. Like, I know you're, like, wanting this heart-touching moment, but, like, instantly ruined because of that.
But that's why that part is so good, because Michael Clark Duncan's character was not only, like, you know, made of his own victim, and he was basically the victim of that story, along with you know, the murder victims. But, you know, he's been what's the word I'm thinking of? He's had prejudice towards him. He's had, you know, abuse towards him, and all he tried to do was live with, like, a caring heart and a kind soul his whole life. And he couldn't be seen for that. He was seen for the color of his skin and his build of his person.
Yep.
And he finally wanted everyone to see who he really was and what they did to him. They put him in that chair. They caused his death.
That's not why he did it.
But that's kind of what you get, like, from his death.
I know. I'm just saying that's not why he did it.
No, I know, but, like,
especially because, like, all the guard. Well, another thing is that all the guards, didn't want to do it.
No, none of them did.
Not a single one.
No. And that's what I'm saying, though. Like, if we delve deeper into if we delve into the dapper of this movie and get real stinky with it, if you delve deeper into it, like, that's also the case that you can make for it. At least that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, going even on to, like, the fact that he almost gave up, and, like, his awesome ass wife totally, like,
I was like, "No, you finish this story.
I want a fucking McMansion."
Yeah, basically.
I mean, that's probably why she didn't do it. She probably didn't do it for that, but still.
Yeah, it's just like, "No, you will finish this story. It's good. Now write it." And now he made $250,000 off of it.
Yeah, that must have been a very, like, sweet, "you were right, honey" moment.
Now I'm going to treat you to a McMansion.
I'm going to treat you to a McMansion. But holy shit, like, there was also one thing I took out that I kind of want to touch on really quick, is that Stephen King was in a auto accident, or I should say accident. He got, like, run over by a van, or hit by a van.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I guess the van wasn't going too fast or something, but it definitely, like he was in urgent care. Like,
yeah,
I guess, like, he had some sharp bones, and it fucked him up. But the reason I want to bring it up is because I think it was, like, his lawyers bought the van and crushed it so they wouldn't resell it. Yeah, they bought the van for, like, $1,500, I think, and, like,
we're not gonna have anyone buy a van that hit Stephen King.
But that's really kind of smart, though, because if this is the van that hit Stephen King, holy shit. Like, I guarantee there's someone who would pay, like, probably $500,000 for that.
Oh, easily.
Like, that's insane.
You sadistic piece of shit.
So one thing that's been synonymous with Stephen King, aside from, you know, he's a fantastic writer and horror icon, and and he's just a chill dude, is that he has a lot of pseudonyms.
Yeah, I mean, most famous artists do. Famous writers.
Yeah, a lot of them do. No, that's going to go into a different
Anyway,
tangent.
so Richard Bachman,
One of his most popularly known pseudonyms.
in the late 1970s and early 1980s, King published a handful of short novels. Rage, in 1977, The Long Walk, 1979, Roadwork in 1981, The Running Man. I always forget that's a Stephen King movie.
Right?
Arnold Schwarzenegger is just synonymous with it. In 1982, and Thinner in 1984, under the pseudonym Richard Bachman. The idea behind this was to test whether he could replicate his success again and to allay his fears that his popularity was an accident. An alternate explanation was that publishing standards at the time allowed only a single book a year. Jesus. He picked up the name from the hard rock band Bachman Turner Overdrive, of which he is a fan. Maximum Overdrive. Stephen King's a hard rock fan. Yes.
See you in the pit.
And Richard Bachman was exposed as King's pseudonym by a persistent Washington, D.C. bookstore clerk. Fucking asshole Steve Brown. Who noticed similarities between the works and later located publishers' records at the Library of Congress that named King as the author of one of Bachman's novels. This led to a press release heralding Bachman's quote-unquote death, supposedly from cancer of pseudonym. King dedicated his 1989 book, The Dark Half, about a pseudonym turning on a writer, to the deceased Richard Bachman. And in 1996, when the Stephen King's novel Desperation was released, the companion novel The Regulators carried the Bachman byline. Fuck you, Steve. You probably cost King millions of dollars just because you're like, oh no, wait a minute, hey.
Although you do kind of got to give Steve a little bit of credit just to notice that and to because you could probably imagine he was probably just I swear to God, guys, it's Stephen King.
He has his friend Terry's in the background. Shut up, Steve.
Steve, you're such a fucking liar. We all know it's not fucking Stephen King. Come on. Stephen King did scarier stories. He wouldn't do Running Man, and then when it finally came out, God, that's what your parents fucking hate you, Steve. And then once that came out, Steve was like, fuck you, Terry, and fuck your family. I fucking told you.
What? I've been sleeping with your wife the past couple of years, Terry.
In my mind, I've been jacking it to her this entire time.
Where do you think she goes on her midnight cheese runs?
To Steve and anyone in Steve's life that happens to be named Terry, this is just a joke. So just keep that in mind.
Steve was not sleeping with Terry's wife, as we know of.
And to any Terrys there who was cheated on by their wives, we are sorry.
Could you imagine if that actually was the real deal? If that actually happened?
Right, if we get a fucking email from a guy named Terry, be like, you guys are inconsiderate bitches.
That actually happened. We're like, oh shit.
Just so that is kind of ironic, because then we, how Steve figured out that Stephen King was Richard Bachman. We figured out that Steve slept with Terry, Terry's wife.
Maybe even Terry.
And Terry, he did it without Terry. What's wrong now, Terry?
Yeah. See, she's getting my king.
Oh God. Oh man. I've been taking her the whole Green Mile. Oh God. Okay. But
here's a penny for your wise.
But seriously though, the fact that Stephen King could put on a pseudonym, go under the name of someone else, and just still make fucking creations that are inspirational in pop culture to this day it's fucking legendary.
Yeah.
Jesus, even if so let's say he did it on the fears that he only got popular by accident. Well, fucking, that's a way to prove it, and he, that's funny in itself, but the alternate explanation that he's just I want to do more than one book, putting out books that are long as, It and fucking, Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
And he's just I want to do another fucking book. What do you mean I can only do one a year? Do you know who the fuck I am? I am
Stephen Mother King.
Stephen motherfucking Edward King. I would put out another book, and you can't stop me. Soon to be Richard Bachman. Like, and he just fucking like arises out of nowhere, and he's just like, "Fuck you guys!" Like that seems to be Stephen King's thing. Like he likes to knock over street cones and just like go against the rules in like a really kind of
Create
smart
a
way.
whole another person.
And he's
so
like,
they
"I
can
just
publish
paid that
more
fucking
books."
fine." Like, fuck you guys. like Stephen King is like a low key punk rocker.
Yeah.
Like fucking and like. What I also kind of want to include that I thought was really awesome about Stephen King is that I see if I can pull it up. So he had like a little political activism, like in his life, in April 2008. He like opposed. He was against the bill that would restrict the ban and the sale of like violent video games to anyone under the age of 18, and like his whole reason for it was that even though he has like no interest in video games as a hobby, he criticized the law, which he sees as an attempt by politicians to scapegoat pop culture and to act as a surrogate parents to other people's children, which he asserted is usually disastrous and democratic. And
Undemocratic.
What did I say?
You said democratic.
Undemocratic.
I just wanted to reiterate since you had a burp in the middle of it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I got you, boo.
But that's pretty funny. He's just like, it's a fucking video game.
Yeah.
like you're not their fucking parents. Let the parents fucking do with it.
Yeah,
the parents fuck up the kid. That's their choice.
Seriously, like, just kind of regarding like this whole thing is just like my dad let me play violent video games when I was a kid. Like I got to play Mortal Kombat, and I got to play Doom and stuff like that. But he every time he bought me a new violent video game or anything, like if it was going to be ultra violent, he played it for a little bit first because he was more worried about like over sexualization for me and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like that's why I was able to watch like Predator and stuff, and he was just like, "Look, this is a video game, not real life." He's like, do you know the difference? I was like, and I would tell him like, yes, of course. Like at the time when I was little, I was like, yes, just let me play the fucking game. But at the same time, it's like my dad always made sure that I knew the difference between fiction and nonfiction. Yeah. It's like, this is especially like when we watched horror movies, Stephen King movies, or I read a Stephen King book. He's like, this isn't real. This is just fiction. It's a book or it's a, stuff like that. And he's like, you can't do this stuff in real life. So I feel like if parents don't have the fucking like mindset to tell their kid, hey, this is a video game.
Yeah.
Then maybe you shouldn't even have a goddamn video game system in your fucking household.
And I think that's basically what Stephen King is like. It's just like
it's not the government's job to make sure a parent does their job.
Right. Like it's the parent's job to make sure the kid knows the difference.
Yep.
Like
that's why you had the fucking kid.
like, and sometimes you have to find out the hard way. I had to find out the hard way that like black pepper does make you sneeze, but it's also going to make your nose feel like it's on fire.
Yeah, but you didn't have to learn the hard way. If you tear someone's chest cavity and pull their heart out,
yeah, you generally know not to like fucking murder someone.
Yeah. So,
like, and if you do, then there's some things we got to talk about here. I mean, not us, but well,
so I feel like we touched on some pretty good stuff with Stephen King.
God, yeah. I mean,
so
we could fill up a whole nother hour about Stephen King, but can't do that today. But I'm glad that we did this because it's I like it when we're getting to the point where we can like start focusing like on independent creators. Like I'm extremely excited when we can talk about like Christopher Lee and George A. Romero and fucking like that's gonna be exciting. But Stephen King, like without a doubt, I cannot imagine a world without Stephen King.
I can't imagine a horror world without Stephen King.
He's one of the most humble legends that are living right now, and he is so influential in not just like horror culture but pop culture, and like you've seen his creations being adapted into like Family Guy and Simpsons and fucking I want to say South Park, but I could be wrong. But
South Park did one.
Yeah, like and just any popular show or movie has had Stephen King nods and has had shout outs to him, and it's like there's Stan Lee of Marvel and then there's Stephen King of horror.
Yeah.
And
I mean, like I said earlier, in the movie Hush, you see Stephen King books in the background and stuff like that. Like, there's always nods towards him.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Sorry, our artist is hitting us up. With that being said, we love Stephen King. And Stephen King, if you ever hear this podcast, give us a shout out. We'd love to have you on.
Dude, I'd poop myself if that actually
I
happened.
know, right?
Literally. Like, you'd be like, hey, guys.
It's just so we have a special guest today, and like you're just sitting there like, welcome on the show, Steven. So, with that being said, we have listener strange stories to tell today. So we have 2 stories. One from the notorious Billy Fuzzy Toes.
Yeah.
And one from a listener of ours. So, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first, since it's already up.
Okay.
Because I said I wanted to read this one.
You don't need to yell.
I just... Okay, so... we're just going to read the whole entire email. And since she says feel free, I can use her first name. So first off, wanted to say I'm a huge fan of your show, and I'm so glad I found you guys. We love you too. I adore drawing. I adore drawing and listening to the show at the same time. But anyway, before I get ahead of myself, let me send you guys one of my stories from over at my mom's house. Her name is Christina. Christina's story is, so the way my mom's house is set up is we have a fairly big living room that opens up into the kitchen where if you are sitting down, you can see the back door that connected to it. Now, we also have thick plastic blinds that go over the door, blocking it if we don't want light in said kitchen. So one night I was sitting down working on some art on my computer when I heard the back door knob move from side to side. I immediately froze, thinking that someone was trying to get into the house and didn't know what to do. But then once I looked up at the doorknob and saw that the blinds were also pushed back and it was turning, meaning that whatever was turning the doorknob was coming from the inside. Keep in mind that my sister was taking a shower and my mom was sleeping in the other room. I sat there for a few minutes just watching the knob slowly twist back and forth until I carefully walked up to try to see if maybe the wind was pushing back the blinds. Once I got close, the knob turning stopped and the blinds swung back. I didn't hear any footsteps from outside or cars taking off, and did check the back porch only to find that no one was there. I checked the air vent to find that if it was running and couldn't have to move them as far back as the one I saw. Soon after, I told my mom about it and found out that she had used white sage to cleanse the house from evil spirits.
So,
woof.
Right now, right? And so I guess my input would be, so say if we were going to say it was something practical. Not saying it is, just saying if it was, my first thought would have been, it would have to be, the vents, or I'm wondering if they had a pet. But, the thing that, disproves that is, the way she says that the blinds just, flew open.
Mm-hmm. And the doorknob turning?
Yeah. I don't know, maybe it's a dog that grew thumbs. It's a bad explanation.
That's still a demon.
But, yeah. That is true, that's true. That's a werewolf. But, when she includes the fact that, her mom used white sage to cleanse the house, I'm just like, holy shit. This is, this is not, your low-key, passing ghost. This is straight up, we're, WWE, throw down with sage.
Get out of my house, RKO!
Hey, hit him with the chair with the sage! That's, but it also kind of reminds me of a story from the No Sleep podcast where, it was just a story about this babysitter who was watching TV, and she saw this black silhouette in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Turned around, there was no silhouette. This story made me think of that story, and I'm just it just gave me chills just thinking about it. So thank you, Christina, for reaching out to us, and thank you for your strange story.
Yep. And thank you so much.
It definitely did a good job of creeping us out and being just an awesome story to tell. So thank you. And now, moving on to our second story for this episode, from the one and only Billy Fuzzy Toes. Billy Fuzzy Toes wrote in to us, said, "When I was a kid, I would spend some of my summer vacation in Oklahoma with my family that lived there. Well, this summer I was staying at my grandparents' house, and they have a garden that's 50 feet by 50 feet. Well, this year I was there. They were having a small copperhead problem in the area. So my grandfather showed the method that he was taught as a kid to get rid of copperheads. The recipe was a shovel, gasoline, a lighter, and an M80 firecracker. To the mind of an 11-year-old boy, this sounded like the best thing ever. So when you get to the hole that a copperhead might be hiding in, stand on the opposite side of the entrance, so if it comes out, it'll already be going away from you. If it still doesn't come out, take the M80 and the lighter to light it and drop it in the hole to light the gas. If nothing happens, take the shovel to fill the hole up and pack the dirt to move on to the next hole, or to use a shovel to kill the snake from a distance. This was a summer I learned to climb the hard way. Well, we'll find out. Sorry, that's just, I learned to climb the hard way. Well, I found several holes in the garden over the week, and nothing had happened all week, so I was starting to get complacent about not finding any copperheads and forgot to grab the shovel that day. Well, besides forgetting the shovel, I faced the entrance of the hole instead of being behind it. So this hole was in the shade of a big tree in the backyard. I poured the gas and waited. Nothing happened, so I grabbed the lighter and dropped the M80 down the hole. The next thing I heard was a hissing of a very pissed off copperhead barreling out at me on fire. I freaked out. I freak out and start running like a bat out of hell. The only thing near me that I could get me away from the pissed off copperhead was the tree. In that moment, I decided that climbing the tree was the best way. This was the best way to get away, even though I had never climbed one before. Well, it turns out I had no problem climbing that tree with the fear of death running through me. I had only thought far enough to climb the tree and not how I would climb down it. I was in the tree for an hour before my grandfather came out with a ladder to get me down. The next year that I came back, my grandfather had put a 2x4 handhold on the tree to climb it easier. Oh, Billy. So first off, we're going to put a disclaimer. We don't recommend chasing any copperheads this way.
Yeah.
So if you do it this way, we are not responsible.
I'm just thinking of something out of like a Will Ferrell movie where he's just standing like, meh, meh. And all of a sudden you hear, and then a fucking fire snake comes out of
Holy shit, though. That's fucking intense. Like,
instant poop yourself. It's instant.
I just like how the grandpa's just like, oh, you're gonna need this. It just puts handlebars fucking for you to climb up on. Just like, oh, this is for you. So just whatever. Just don't die, okay? Get at it. Like that's just intense. Like, I can't imagine like a fire snake.
I know, like, just coming at you.
Like, Satan has risen.
He's like, oh, I've never climbed a tree before, but I'm going to do it now. Not today, Satan!
Yeah, you learn really fucking quick. You either swim or drown. In this case, you either climb a tree or get eaten by a fire snake. Thank you, Billy, for sending us your stories. Yeah. And thank you, Christina and Billy, for you sending us your stories this time around. We love when our listeners send us strange stories, and if you want to send us your strange stories, whether it's things throwing blinds and twisting doorknobs or fire snakes, please send your stories into punkrockhorrorpodcast@gmail.com. Yep. With that being said, we are at the end of the show for the day. Everyone stay tuned for that announcement for our live show and live recording that you can come to and hang out with us. We will update our social media soon about it. With that being said, if you want to keep up with everything we're doing and get those details first, once they come out, please like us and follow us on our Facebook at officialphp and on our Twitter at officialphp.
Yep. And also follow us on our Instagram, Punk Rock Horror Podcast, hashtag PHRP podcast.
You know it's supposed to be PRHP?
Or PRHP. Sorry, PRHP. Hashtag PRHP.
Because then it's like Punk Horror Rock Podcast.
Man, that actually kind of would have been a cool name.
No, too late.
Yeah.
I got to clarify, on our Facebook, just search up Punk Rock Horror Podcast and you'll find us. With that being said, you can listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, our website that's up and running and looks fantastic and beautiful now. If you want to consider supporting the show, please go over to our Patreon /punkrockhorrorpodcast, and you will have a full catalog of all of our episodes and get first access to episodes before anyone else, before they come out. So you'll get be able to listen to it so for example, say we have an episode coming out on Friday, you'll be able to listen to it on Wednesday. So to do that, go over and consider becoming at least a $2 supporter of the show. With that being said, I got nothing else to you.
No, I'm good.
All right, talk to you later, everyone.
Bye.
Podcast over.
Podcast over.
Bye.
Huh.